I'm John Kaiser in Vancouver at the Metals Investor Forum. It is January 18th, 2020. I am talking to Loren Komperdo, CEO of Zephyr Minerals. Loren, welcome to Vancouver.
Thank you very much, John.
Loren, Zephyr believes that the El Plomo segment within its Green Mountain Dawson project has all the earmarks of a Broken Hill style zinc, lead, silver deposit. What makes a Broken Hill style deposit more special than, say, a SEDEX or Mississippi Valley type zinc lead deposit?
Right, John. So probably the biggest difference between those deposits and a Broken Hill type are the amount of silver. Generally speaking, Broken Hill type deposits have a high concentration of silver in them. And a good example of that is the Cannington deposit, which was discovered by BHP Minerals in 1990. For 20 years, it was the largest and lowest cost silver producer in the world. The other thing you get is the mineralization is quite coarse because it's remobilized in a metamorphic terrain, so that it's easily recoverable, and you get a very high grades. You're talking, quite often 15% combined lead, zinc, of course, with high grade silver. And these things are generally very large tonnage. They're from 40 million tons up to Broken Hill was 280 million tons. So it's a very special deposit in that they're very high tonnage, very high grade, and quite rare because they only occur between 1.6 and 1.8 billion years ago.
Okay, so several decades ago, a predecessor of Zephyr Minerals had this project, recognized zinc, lead, silver mineralization outcropping within the El Plomo segment, drilled some holes, but walked away. Why, decades later, are you now revisiting this old showing?
Well, what happened was, and we've been working on a gold project in this area for a couple of years, but when we picked up an area called Green Mountain, we got a call from a university professor from Iowa State, and world-class expert. The gentleman has worked for 40 years doing research on Broken Hill type deposits. And he came to us and said, listen, I think this is a Broken Hill style deposit. If you look at the 4 holes, we've got some quite good grades in there. I mean, one of the holes has got 8.2 meters of 5.3% zinc in it. But at the time, they thought these were just narrow little veins or systems. And so they didn't think there was any tonnage to it. But when you change the model to a Broken Hill style model, now you've got something that could have potential tonnage to it. So we've been exploring along those lines. A good example of that is in the last 20 years or so, there's a specific type of rock called, it's a spinel, it's called gannite. And if that gannite has very high zinc contents in it, it's an indication you're very close to Broken Hill type deposits. Almost all of them, I think all of them, in fact, do have this high gannite zinc content. And Dr. Spry has done some research work and shown that we have that same zinc content across the entire property.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Spry opened your eyes to the potential that in between your gold segments, there is a potential Broken Hill style system. What did you do last year to enhance that target? Because obviously there's just some skinny stuff near surface, drilled to maybe 100 meters deep. What did you do last year that has now made you so much more excited heading into 2020?
So these, quite often these Broken Hill style deposits are very magnetic. And the reason for that is when they're developed, when you run out of sulfur in the system, the iron combines to make magnetite, which is an iron oxide. So these things can be very magnetic. So what we did was we flew a magnetic survey across the entire property, and just south of where we've got our outcrop or showings with our drill holes, we've got a very strong magnetic anomaly at depth. So with that data, we then took that data and we completed what's known as the 3D inversion modeling program. And that program then can give you a 3-dimensional idea of what it looks like, what that magnetic looks like at depth. And we see that we've got two very big, large magnetic anomalies at depth. They're running, rough estimate is you got each anomaly is about 100 million tons of rock in each anomaly. And so you know potentially each one of those could have 30 to 40 million tons of a material that might be you know mineable grade in there. So it's very exciting. One of the other things we found with this geophysics is broken hill style deposits are generally found in fold hinges, and we found that the magnetics where we've got these large targets suggest that we might have a fold hinge in there. So we've kind of, it's all come full circle to give us a full picture of what we see at depth at on the west end of this El Palomo section.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned 40, 50 million tonnage footprints. Now, obviously, that's the magnetic anomaly. You still need to prove that it has lead, zinc, silver mineralization at a sufficient grade to be worth mining underground. But Cannington was started as a 40 million deposit, has been expanded to 90 million tons or so. It's completely blind. It was found by geophysics with garnite as somehow being available regionally and guiding everybody there. Cannington, if it were found today, what would it be worth?
That's a good question. I think, you know, if you found a Cannington today, you know, in situ, the ore in the ground is, you know, is going to be $20 billion plus, and what its value is on surface, you know, from a net present value standpoint, you know, it would be in the billions.
In the billions. So we're literally talking of, when you guys say elephant hunting in Colorado, this is what you're talking about. You're talking about a target potentially worth $1 to $2 billion at the end of the day if it proves to be something similar to Cannington.
That's correct. That's correct. And we have, you know, what in my career, this is probably the best geological prospect I've seen. It's got the geology, the geochemistry, and the geophysics all come together. We've got the right granite signature. We've got the right magnetic signature underground. We've got the right size of target. At this point, the next step is to drill it and see if it's there.
Mm-hmm. Now, the El Plomo area is a bighorn sheep habitat, which restricts the drilling season. What is the window during which you can drill this? And suppose you make a big discovery, how can you accelerate it within that window and ultimately make this a year-round exploration operation?
Right. So because the bighorn sheep in the area, our drilling window is from July 1st to October 30th. So this year, of course, we'll bring one rig on there and we'll do our exploration with one drill rig. If we are successful, we could, you know, in that window, we could bring 3 rigs on there and do substantial drilling. Once we get to the point that we know we've got enough tonnage to warrant a tunnel, we could then go to the north. There's a very flat area to the north, or we also own land to the east. We could, either one of those areas, we go in there and basically put a tunnel down. And once we put that adit or tunnel, whatever you want to call it, in, from that point, you can do all your development drilling underground, and that is year-round. So that would be, you know, it's a couple of years out before we got to that point, but if we're successful, it wouldn't take too long at all to give you a thumbs up that we've got enough to put a tunnel in.
Mm-hmm. So, and under my rational speculation model, a project with a plausible outcome of $2 billion, it should be commanding a market valuation of sort of 25 to 50 million, but you're down there at 10, 12 million because the market doesn't believe this. Suppose the negative scenario and the grade just isn't there. You still have the Green Mountain and Dawson gold projects that you have been working on. What can you do also in 2020 on those projects to advance those, just in case Plan A doesn't really work out?
Sure. So where we are right now with this geophysics is the 3D inversion modeling just came out in late November. So this is all fairly new. So we're going to basically try and get the story out now and hopefully get more attention to the project. At the same time, what we plan to do is the Green Mountain area, which we just picked up last winter, we're going to go in there, and that area has to be mapped and looked at. So we're going to go out there and sample that, map it, probably look at doing a geophysical program, not this year, but the first step in there on that Green Mountain area is to map it. We've got showings that are over 5 kilometer long distance, so there's a lot of work to be done there. This year would be mapping and sampling. We know we've got gold samples out there that we've prospected before that have shown up to 13.6 grams gold with no sulfides, which is very similar to what we have at Dawson. So we've got an excellent opportunity to increase our gold project on that Green Mountain area.
Now, in the Dawson area, you've got a couple 100,000 ounce of high grade, but the limitation there is that the dip of the system is into the mountain, so chasing it deeper is impossible, cost prohibitive. In the Green Mountain area, would that same problem apply so that you can only chase it down a couple 100 meters, or is the orientation
No, not
different?
at all. The Green Mountain area is much more subtle topography. So, in fact, a lot of it, probably about half of it, is just flat ground. So we'll be able to drill at significant depth there without running into the problem of running up the mountain and having that structural, the topography problem that you've got at Dawson.
Mm-hmm. So Zephyr Minerals is a potential out-of-the-park home run with the Broken Hill zinc lead silver target, but there's also the backup from the gold stuff which you've been working on for the past decade. So there you've got a bit of a hedge in case the Broken Hill story doesn't deliver. But it looks like this is going to be a good year for gold, and appetite for exploration discovery is improving. I've been talking to Loren Komperdo of Zephyr Minerals at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver. Thank you, Loren.
Thank you very much, John.